with more than 1,000 rounds of ammunition in his basement in Maryland. He is facing weapons and drugs charges, but officials say that is just the tip of the iceberg. And the Trump administration refusing to allow an American ISIS bride into the United States. Hoda Muthana left Alabama to join the terror group in Syria back in 2014. And now she's begging to come back home with her 18-month-old son. As Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says that she's not even an American citizen, writing this in part. She does not have any legal basis, no valid U.S. passport, no right to a passport, nor any visa to travel to the United States. Her family lawyer denies that claim, saying that she is a citizen and that she was born in New Jersey. The reason the State Department does not consider her a citizen is because her father was a diplomat. Well, this is a live look at the Vatican, where Pope Francis is hosting a summit to address sexual abuse in the Catholic Church. Starting today, church leaders from around the world are meeting with high-ranking Vatican officials to focus on ways to move forward. The four-day summit will address transparency, the responsibility of bishops, and holding church leaders accountable. And today, Roger Stone heads to court to address a threatening photo of a federal judge. President Trump's former advisor has apologized for posting the picture on Instagram, showing Judge Amy Berman Jackson next to crosshairs of a gun. Well, she is now considering whether to revoke his release or his limited gag order. Stone has pleaded not guilty to lying to Congress and witness tampering in the Russia probe. Well, it is now about 15 minutes after the top of the hour, and the expected release of Robert Mueller's report on Russia has many asking, what comes next? Will anyone else be charged? Attorney David Bruno says Democrats will be extremely disappointed, and he is here live to explain.
Person who really respects this country and respects the Justice Department, so that'll be totally up to him.
Well, after nearly 2 years, the Mueller probe may finally be coming to an end. We've heard that before, though. The special counsel's report could be submitted as early as next week. So what can we expect? Here to discuss is criminal defense attorney David Bruno. David, we've had this conversation plenty of times.
Yes, we have.
But what about the timing of this? Let's just begin there next week, because obviously the president will be in Vietnam for the North Korea summit. William Barr just having taken over. What is going on here?
Yeah, I think it's the Barr nomination that's most important to point out, because Rod Rosenstein was running this investigation only because AG Sessions had recused himself.
Right.
Now that Barr comes in, he is, in fact, the leader of this investigation. So it's up to him to run it, and he could have said, end it, or it could have been time. It could have been Mueller's time where naturally this came to an end, but we just won't know at this point. But there have been reports that this is going to close out next week, and let's just be careful, because we've heard this before, and I will believe it when I see it.
In terms of we were just talking about this during the commercial break, though, because people will say, well, William Barr is coming in there, he's protecting the president, he's wrapping it up before it's complete. Could he have done that if Mueller's side of it was not complete?
Yes.
He could have.
Yes,
okay.
because Rosenstein was only running this because of the recusal. Now Barr is the Attorney General. The buck stops at the end with William Barr. So, yeah, but I don't think that's the case, because that will be political suicide, because ultimately this will come out. There are going to be many questions asked about this report, why it ended, and I just don't think that they would go down that road.
And what do you think will come out? What will the public be privy to next week if that happens?
That's the big question. The regulations, the federal regulations say that Mueller has to give a confidential report to AG William Barr. Thereafter, it's his discretion, and the federal regulation says that the briefing to Congress is brief.
Well,
so there's no requirement that he has to give verbatim the same report that he gets from Mueller. Well,
I know you said be careful, but the rumor is that it's showing nothing, that there is no collusion. I want to talk to you about this, though. James Comey, the FBI's obviously top lawyer, James Baker, I should say, wanted to charge Hillary Clinton over some her private email server, but was talked out of it.
Yeah, well, when Comey gave his press conference announcing no charges, One of the things he said was no reasonable prosecutor would agree to bring these criminal charges. Now, many of us, including myself, jumped out and said, no, we disagree with that. But now we're learning that there was actually a reasonable prosecutor in the room. You know, there was Baker there saying that there's enough to charge, reportedly. And if that's the case, it just debunks that public statement of James Comey.
They all agreed with him.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happens next with this? Anything?
Well,
does it even matter?
On the Clinton email,
Yeah.
there's plenty. Listen, the House is controlled by the Democrats, and they will do everything that they can to further investigate Russian interference. Let's not forget, Senate is controlled by the Republicans, so they still have the ability to investigate. I would expect an investigation on the Russian interference investigation, including Hillary Clinton. I don't think that story is going away anytime soon with the Republicans controlling the Senate.
Yeah, Russian interference going all the way back to Uranium One.
Mueller's been here. Mueller's been here for 2 years,
Right.
but let's not forget the investigation was opened in 2016. We're coming up to 4 years now where this has been being looked at.
All right, well, we'll see what happens next week, if anything.
Yeah.
Because, as you said, we've heard it before. We'll have you come back. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. Well, the time now is about 18 minutes after the top of the hour, and Colin Kaepernick just settled his grievance with the NFL for a reported $80 million. And now Nike is honoring him as an icon. Well, it's the new jersey everyone is talking about, and Carly Shimkus is sharing reaction up next. One-line reaction. You know, this was blowing up social media, but interestingly enough, not trending on Twitter.
Yeah, well, listen, there was a lot of reaction to this and a lot of anger among people on social media. The case really shifted when investigators spoke to the two brothers, and now their attorney is really encouraging Smollett, in her opinion, to come clean. Smollett's attorneys responded saying detectives will make contact with his legal team to negotiate a reasonable surrender for arrest. That's actually the Chicago Police Department saying that he's
supposed to be there, I think, by 1:30 this afternoon.
Yeah, maybe. I believe that's Central Time. Now, Smollett's attorneys defended him, saying Mr. Smollett enjoys the presumption of innocence, particularly when it has been an investigation like this one, where information, both true and false, has been repeatedly leaked. Now, let's get to the social media reaction on this, because like I said, a lot of people are very angry right now. Gregory says, thank you, Chicago police. Throw the book at him for wasting police time. Your faithful officers have enough to do instead of going on a wild goose chase. Conservative commentator Charlie Kirk also saying, imagine hating a president so much you first try to send yourself a hateful letter to get attention. Once that doesn't work, you hire two guys to stage a hate crime, rehearse it, fail miserably in the execution of it, still go with the hoax, then lie about it till you get arrested.
Yeah.
Smollett has maintained his innocence throughout this whole thing, but he does face a possibility of 1 to 3 years.
Yeah, and federal charges related to the letter, if he was involved in that, the letter that he allegedly or possibly sent to himself.
Yeah.
Threatening letter. So let's talk about Nike, though. Releasing this limited edition Colin Kaepernick jersey after this huge NFL settlement.
Bingo. And Kaepernick, he promoted that jersey on Twitter, saying, for those true to themselves, on and off the field, proudly, unapologetically, and against all odds, this is only the beginning. You saw a photo of the jersey there. Nike released a statement on this new partnership saying, we believe Colin Kaepernick is one of the most inspirational athletes of this generation who has leveraged the power of sport to help move the world forward. Like everything related to Colin Kaepernick, this has polarized social media. One Twitter user says, I hope nobody wastes their money on this. Patrick tweets, as I've been saying, it's all about the money. And Thomas on Facebook says, I will save my money for a jersey from a player that's accomplished something on the field, not in the media. Well, guess what? A whole lot of people did buy it. Just a few hours ago, Kaepernick posted a tweet saying, the jersey sold out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But very polarizing. Possibly going to my Carolina Panthers. Mixed feelings on that from people.
It will be amazing if he plays football again after all this.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I think he wants to, obviously. So finally, what in the world? Why is all I have to say about this shirtless Abe Lincoln statue?
It all started with this tweet saying, reminder that the Los Angeles federal court has a statue of Abraham Lincoln where he's a shirtless young stud, suggestively tugging at his waistband like a Sports Illustrated supermodel. It is a statue that is in that courthouse. Look at that. This sparking a whole bunch of responses. Robert says more like Abraham Lincoln. Brian tweets, is he trying to get Justice to take off her blindfold? Oh my. And
or
another Twitter user says, yeah, a separation of shirt and state. This is where social media is at its best, with all of these funny responses.
Clever.
Yeah. This isn't a new statue either. It's been there since the 1930s.
People just now know Jussie Smollett, charged with a felony for allegedly staging a hate crime attack. He is due in court for a bond hearing in Chicago this afternoon. Prosecutors say that he filed a false police report claiming masked men put a noose around his neck, poured chemicals on him, and shouted MAGA country, along with racial and homophobic slurs. If convicted, Smollett could spend 3 years in prison. Special counsel Robert Mueller's probe is expected to wrap up as early as next week. Sources telling Fox News that recent shakeups at the Justice Department are a sign that the investigation is winding down. It's unclear if or when the report will be made public. And a brand new wave of migrants arrive at the Mexican border ready to cross into the U.S. They're now camped out near the same border wall that potential 2020 candidate Beto O'Rourke wants to destroy in El Paso, Texas. Well, as those migrants wait to cross, Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen is calling on Central America to stop future caravans.
I ask each of you to show bold leadership to stop the formation of new caravans, which have brought violence, crime, and instability to the region and beyond.
Nielsen signing an action plan with Central American leaders to enhance communication between countries and cooperation between law enforcement. Now, as that plan gets underway, the U.S. is making a big progress on a Homeland Security project. President Trump sharing this time-lapse video. It's pretty cool, of crews building a portion of the new border wall. And the president tweeting, quote, "We have just built this powerful wall in New Mexico, completed on January 30th, 2019, 47 days ahead of schedule. Many miles more now under construction. Finish the wall." Now, this section of border wall features those steel slats that we've heard so much about. Pretty neat. Well, what about this, though? Russian President Vladimir Putin taking a veiled shot at the U.S., vowing to retaliate if America deploys missiles to Europe.
Russia will be forced to create and deploy new types of weapons that could be used not only against the territories where a direct threat to us comes from, but also against the territories where decision-making centers directing the use of missile systems threatening us are located.
Maybe not so veiled. So how should the U.S. respond to this increased aggression from Moscow? Here now to weigh in is senior fellow and military expert at Defense Priorities, Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So we didn't want this to fly under the radar because it certainly seems important. What should the U.S. do and how should we respond?
Well, see, this is the reason why we have the most powerful military on the planet and the most sophisticated nuclear deterrent on the planet, because there's no country in the world that's going to attack the United States with nuclear weapons, because there's no country on the world that's going to survive our nuclear response. Vladimir Putin is very aware of this, and so he's certainly not going to actually take any action that would harm his own country. Now, he's also very media savvy, and you can bet that every word of that speech was intentionally.
A false police report. As Chicago PD's chief communications officer tweeting, detectives will make contact with his legal team to negotiate a reasonable surrender for his arrest. So what happens next? Supposedly he's supposed to turn himself in this afternoon. Joining me now with some expert insights is attorney Elliot Feelig. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
Wow, what a wild ride this story has been.
Unbelievable, but there were so many red flags right from the outset on this, and I don't know how so many people in the media, so many people who should have known better, missed it.
Yeah, to listen to all the facts first, and that wasn't done, you were just discussing, by several well-known media outlets.
Well, look, anytime someone comes forward with a story where they're the only eyewitness and the facts are completely consistent with their pre-existing political narrative right there, you got to be suspicious. But then let's get into the underlying facts. 2 a.m. on the street in Chicago, a city that voted 7-1 for Hillary Clinton, polar vortex. 2 Trump supporters are running around with rope and bleach in hand. He says they recognized him from the show Empire. I haven't seen the Venn diagram on this, but I think that the overlap between hardcore MAGA supporters and hardcore Empire fans is a pretty narrow sliver. He says he heroically fought them off, and in the midst of this, they announce their political views and say, you're in MAGA country. None of this passes the smell test. But the real kicker, when the cops show up and they ask to look at his phone, which is real evidence, he won't give over his phone. How does this not reek of suspicion?
But I have to ask you, I mean, we can put up what his attorneys are saying. They are saying and sticking by it, Mr. Smollett enjoys a presumption of innocence, particularly when there has been an investigation like this one where information they claim has been both true and false. And you can read the rest of their statement there.
Sure.
How do they possibly go in today and defend him? What will be their story?
Look, they're just going to enter a plea of not guilty. They're going to be handed a copy of the indictment. He's got bigger problems, though, because he's facing separate federal
and talk
potential
about
felony.
That.
Sure, he may have orchestrated this letter that contained white powder and a threat. Even if he knew the powder was nothing more than crushed Tylenol, if anyone at that facility was put in fear because of the letter, then that's a separate potential charge of terroristic threat. And if he lied to any FBI officials investigating it, that's also a separate crime. So he could face this state felony indictment, could face a separate federal felony indictment, could face consecutive time.
Wow. So actually, on that note, let's bring up the potential punishments for the felony disorderly conduct alone. That would be imprisonment of 1 to 3 years, up to a $25,000 fine. But as you were saying, it could get much worse. Could
get much worse because the federal charge would be a separate sovereign bringing charges, and it's a separate incident, so you could face consecutive time. State time for the incident on the street, falsely reporting, federal time for the fake terroristic threat.
What about paying back the Chicago PD for the amount of time they spent on this case, time that they had to take away from other cases,
from
murders,
real crimes,
as we know Chicago has a problem with?
Right. 12 detectives apparently assigned to this. So, yeah, they could go after him for restitution of that as well.
Do you think that they will? And
they should.
Is there a precedent for that?
Absolutely. And a gentleman, regarding the letter, a gentleman in Texas who was sending fake powder letters got 5 years for that.
And it could open up the door, I mean, because you were talking about all of this misinformation, all of the Hollywood stars that jumped on board, the media.
It's one thing for a few Hollywood celebrity lightweights to go on Twitter, but how does someone like Don Lemon, and I don't mean to pick on him, okay, but he's the one who said I spoke with Jussie right after the incident. How does Don Lemon look his viewers in the eye and say, I'm not so gullible that I'll believe any story that fits my political narrative, no matter how far-fetched that story may be on its face?
And this isn't the first time, though, that we've dealt with, you know, a hoax-type crime.
So many hoaxes, it's as if there's this voracious media appetite for these things, and there are people willing to feed that appetite.
And people know that, so they do this to get the attention? Is that what's going on?
I think to get the attention because they know there's this huge audience for it. But how do the people who fell for this hook, line, and sinker, how do they maintain their credibility?
Well, and then legally, is there anything that can be done in the future looking at this case and looking at the fact that this isn't the first time that this has happened that can be done in terms of hoaxes? And
I would hope
the media specifically.
I would hope the media will be more suspicious. I have my doubts because this happened just 3 weeks after the Covington incident, where the media jumped to conclusions. And I guess the legislators could enhance penalties for reporting hoaxes.
And not just the media, though, but social media spreading it as if it's fact.
How about Kamala Harris? She's billing herself as a presidential candidate as a former prosecutor. She fell for it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, and it's interesting how maybe quiet that side has been the past 24 hours.
It's suddenly a different tune. Suddenly it's, oh, let's wait for the facts to come out. Hey, guys, you could have said that 3 weeks ago.
So what happens today?
Today he'll be brought before a judge. He'll be given a formal written copy of the indictment. He'll be told the actual charges against him. They'll probably put it over because he doesn't have a criminal record or a long criminal record. He'll be given the opportunity to post bail.
And the two brothers?
And the two brothers appear to be cooperating. So even if they haven't gotten formal immunity, they've gotten de facto immunity because they're clearly working with the prosecutors.
Yeah, someone said they didn't need to be given immunity because they were telling the truth or something like that. I think
right,
their attorney.
And if they did nothing more than engage in a fake fight and they didn't lie to the police after, that's not a crime.
All right, Elliot, thank you so much. Fascinating,
thank you.
Really. We'll see what happens. Well, the time now is about 15 minutes until the top of the hour. And here's a quote for you. I'd rather starve and close. The store owner facing some backlash for refusing business from Trump supporters. And the new Samsung foldable phone may look like a wallet, but it's going to clean yours out. The jaw-dropping price tag. Times Square sign bashes the Democratic Socialists for praising Amazon's decision to cancel their New York City headquarters. The Job Creators Network group writing, Amazon pull out, thanks for nothing, AOC. Ocasio-Cortez tweeting overnight that the sign is like a billionaire's version of this scene from The Office.
We have bubblegum shrimp, Red Lobster down there. You know, this is the heart of civilization right here.
Ocasio-Cortez trying to express that she thinks the Times Square sign is out of touch. 25,000 jobs. Well, the attorney representing the Covington Catholic student suing the Washington Post says the lawsuit is not just about seeking $250 million. Now, Lynn Wood says that Nicholas Sandmann's image is now tarnished.
Think about what this young boy is having to deal with at age 16 when the entire world saw him the way the media portrayed him, as literally the face of evil. It is inexcusable, reprehensible conduct by the media. And the Washington Post led the way.
Sandmann's lawsuit claims the Post published a series of false and defamatory stories in an attempt to smear him because he was wearing a MAGA hat. The president tweeting, quote, "Go get them, Nick. Fake news." Well, the Fox Business Alert for you now. A major privacy group demanding answers from Google over a hidden microphone planted in one of their devices. Tracy Krasko from our sister network, Fox Business, here with more on the possible privacy invasion. Good morning.
Good morning, Heather. Yes, the Electronic Privacy Information sent a letter to the FTC demanding it take action against Google and putting a warning out there for consumers and the risk that they could be at. Now, this after Google admitted it made a mistake in not disclosing that its home alarm systems, the Nest Guards, had microphones in them. The microphone had never been listed on any sort of tech specifications. It was not publicized from Google. Google says this wasn't meant to be a secret, that the microphone on Nest devices is turned off by default, that any mic in a Nest device only turns on if users enable the voice-activated Google Assistant. Now, all of this was discovered when Google said, hey, we did a software update. Your Nest is now voice activated. And a lot of people said, I didn't know it had a microphone in it. So that is where all of this stems from. People didn't know that these devices had those microphones in them.
Well, now you know.
Yep.
Something else we know is this phone is going to cost a lot of money because it folds. Is that the reason?
Yes, that's right. So Samsung, they have been teasing this foldable phone for a while, and we are finally learning some more details. It will officially launch on April 26th with a price tag. Get this, $1,980 for a foldable phone. So essentially, when it's closed up, it will look like a regular smartphone. Then you open it up. It's like a mini tablet, which is about 7.3 inches with an Infinity Flex display.
Wow.
That's what they're calling it. It also has 3 camera systems, 2 batteries. It's great for multitaskers because you're able to use 3 apps at once. And so you can jump back and forth between the closed version of it and then the open mini tablet version of it.
I mean, he's been accused of using chemical weapons on his own people. Well, a music shop pushing away customers who support President Trump. At the Cleveland area store owner posting a sign with a letter on the front door reading, quote, "I feel unclean and dirty accepting money from you. Please politely shop somewhere else. Sorry, I would rather starve and close the store than participate in wrongdoing." The owner says he isn't banning Trump supporters. He's simply asking them to go somewhere else. And so we asked what you thought about all this, and Bruce on Facebook says, "I'm cool with that. He won't get a cent from me." Paul on Instagram says, "It's his business. He can be a small-minded, hyper-reactive, hating bigot if he wants to be, but it's a shame that we've come to this." And then Elaine on Facebook says, "Is that legal? I feel sorry for them. The president is trying to protect this country as best he can. Too bad they don't understand." Well, now it is time for the good, the bad, and the ugly. Up first, the good. This police canine is pumped up about fitness. Look at Athos, the dog, doing push-ups with the officers. This is so cute. It was in New Hampshire at the police department there. The Auburn police now challenging other departments to see if they can do better. That's awesome. Well, now the bad. A zoo under fire for letting children play tug of war with lions and tigers. Now, the British Wildlife Center charged about $20 for the, quote, human versus beast challenge. Activists call the activity shameful and abusive. The zoo claims that the enrichment keeps the animals healthy. And then finally, I have to talk about this. The ugly. A Duke basketball player's shoe blows out less than a minute into the game. And Zion Williamson's foot tearing through his sneaker as he dribbled away from a UNC player. Williamson, who is expected to be the #1 draft pick, by the way, in the NBA, has a minor knee sprain. The Tar Heels won that game 88-72. And I was watching. I didn't wear my Carolina blue today, though, but tickets $2,000 a pop for that. President Obama was there as well. So good game. Congratulations, Tar Heels. That wraps up this hour of Fox and Friends First. It continues right now. See you later. Bye.
Isn't a MAGA hat-wearing Trump supporter as initially thought. It's Smollett himself.
Was this alleged hate crime all just a hoax? It's starting to look that way. The breaking developments as the actor is about to face a judge. And bracing for another migrant caravan at the border, this one heading right for the area where Beto O'Rourke wants to tear down fencing.
We are live on the ground with what officials are doing to curb the crisis. And it may be the dead of winter, but things are heating up because Victoria's Secret bathed Chicago this afternoon.
Yeah, prosecutors say that he filed a false police report claiming that masked men put a noose around his neck, poured chemicals on him, and shouted, "This is MAGA country," along with racial and homophobic slurs. All this allegedly happened in downtown Chicago. If convicted, Smollett could face 3 years in prison. His attorney says at this point he enjoys the presumption of innocence.
The bombshell charges come after surveillance video came to light showing a pair of brothers buying red hats and ski masks hours before the alleged attack. Those brothers have been questioned by police and have claimed that Smollett paid them to stage the assault. Their lawyer says the actor needs to come clean.
I think Jussie Smollett should come clear because the truth will set him free. I think that Jussie's conscience is probably not letting him sleep right now, so I think he should unload that conscience and just come out and tell the American people what actually happened.
Empire producers are reportedly considering suspending Smollett from the show as this investigation continues to unfold.
Keep it here. We'll keep you updated throughout the day.
Sure. All right. No matter the outcome of the Smollett case, investigators have spent a lot of their valuable time combing through all this evidence.
Chicago anti-violence activist Tio Hardiman says this has all taken much needed attention away from the real problems facing the city.
If Jussie, stays the attack, he's dead wrong because he's receiving all the attention. And we just had a 1-year-old child, a toddler shot in the head named Baby Chase, and he's not getting any attention. And we have a 14 to 16% homicide clearance rate. And if Jussie is guilty of the charges, he's dead wrong because he's taking much needed attention from a serious problem in Chicago. I've been in Chicago all my life, and like I said, I've never ever heard of an attack like this. And Jussie should stop playing games with the people if he's wrong, because he owes everybody in Chicago an apology. Yeah. Where's the news at about people being killed? He's taking resources from much needed communities where violence is running rampant out here.
More than 180 people have been shot in Chicago so far this year.
All right, big update here. The FBI's former top attorney wanted to charge Hillary Clinton over her private email use, but was talked out of it. Fox News confirming that James Baker's admission came in for James Baker, and the admission was in closed-door testimony on Capitol Hill.
And he continued to battle, according to his own testimony, with people in his office, along with Comey as well. He had these arguments going back and forth until the very end.
All right, despite calling Clinton's private email use alarming and appalling, Baker told lawmakers he was convinced to change his mind after arguments with senior colleagues. The FBI has consistently claimed that top officials agreed with former Director James Comey's decision to not pursue charges against Clinton. That might be falling apart now.
Special counsel Robert Mueller's probe is expected to wrap up as early as next week. Sources telling Fox News that recent shakeups at the Justice Department are a sign that the investigation is winding down. Meanwhile, President Trump is slamming the former acting director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe.
Well, I think Andrew McCabe has made a fool out of himself over the last couple of days, and he really looks to me like sort of a poor man's J. Edgar Hoover. I think he's a disaster.
McCabe has done several TV interviews recently where he's opened up about launching investigations into President Trump and alleged Russian ties. He's even suggested the president could be a Russian agent.
A brand new wave of migrants arrive at the Mexican border ready to cross into the U.S. They're now camped out near the same existing border fencing that likely 2020 presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke wants to tear down.
Griff Jenkins is live on the ground in Mexico with the caravan as those migrants prepare to start their day. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Jillian, Rob. Yeah, the Casa del Migrante here in Juarez is full at capacity, in part because a new caravan, yet another one, has crossed 1,000 or more in the southern border of Mexico. They clashed with officials and now are on their march north. But part of the reason, the other reason why this is full is because in Piedras Negras, the place where I spoke to you last from the border, they have closed that shelter and moved it over, some of the people over here. And that's why the border cities along the southwest border are being flooded. If you look at the numbers in El Paso, just across the bridge here from us in the U.S., they are having unbelievable numbers. They're up 478% increase in apprehensions. If you look at this year's fiscal year, just the last 5 months, it's 43,238 compared to only 7,481 this past year. Now, this is only one of two shelters. We went in the other shelter yesterday. You can see it's the same scene. Migrants crowded, some families, some individual men, but it's the same thing where they're trying to wait to get into the United States, either legally or illegally. We spoke to one of the migrants, Randy Davidson, and I asked him about Beto O'Rourke's comments about taking down the wall. He says, bring that wall down. Listen.
When you hear the Democrat candidates say, take the wall down, there should not be a wall, how do you feel about that?
Very comfortable. I guess if you ask many people here what they feel about that, they're going to say, that's like very comfortable.
Take the wall down?
Take the wall down.
Now, yesterday, DHS Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen, guys, was down in El Salvador meeting with the countries there, the Northern Triangle, trying to get some sort of agreement to try and stop the root cause of why so many migrants are coming. Rob, Jillian?
All right, Griff, back at the border. Thank you so much.
A Coast Guard lieutenant accused of plotting a mass terror attack on the U.S. is due in court today. Prosecutors say Christopher Paul Hassan had a hit list of possible targets, including Democrats.
She does not have any legal basis, no valid U.S. passport, no right to a passport, nor any visa to travel to the United States. Her attorney denies that claim, saying that she is a citizen. They say she was born in New Jersey after her father finished his job as a diplomat, which would have barred her citizenship.
Stay tuned for more on that. Florida lawmakers are considering a ban on sanctuary cities. The bill has moved through the first committee. It would require all local law enforcement agencies to cooperate with federal agencies if they arrest someone with an immigration hold. New Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has vowed to put an end to sanctuary cities.
All right, 9 minutes after the hour, the Bob Mueller investigation appears to finally be coming to a close after nearly 2 years at this point. Also, a new confession from the FBI's former top lawyer that he wanted to charge Hillary Clinton for her emails, but was talked out of it. Texas Congressman Louis Gohmert live to weigh in on both those stories coming up.
Plus, how about this one? Honest Abe is honestly hot. I can't make this up. A steamy statue that is causing quite a stir online. Stay tuned for that story.
Person who really respects this country and respects the Justice Department. So that'll be totally up to him.
All right, nearly 2 years later, and the Mueller probe may finally be wrapping up.
New reports indicating the special counsel could be ready to submit his report on Russian collusion as early as next week. So what can we expect?
Joining us live to talk about this, Texas Congressman and House Judiciary member, Representative Louis Gohmert. Thank you, sir, for coming on this morning. When this all started off, we were promised Russian collusion, treasonous, stealing an election with Vladimir Putin, and it's all about to come to a head. What do you expect?
Well, I expect Mueller to want to drag this out even further if he possibly could, but 2 years is a long time to drag it out. But what a dream job for him. He had just been begging President Trump for to appoint him FBI director again, and when he didn't get it, he felt a bit abused, and so then he gets to investigate the guy that wouldn't hire him. So a dream job for him. He was involved with as FBI director with Rosenstein when in the real Russian investigation over there trying to illegally get access to our uranium, which they were successful in doing with the help of Hillary Clinton, and the Clinton Foundation, of course, benefited. But so the longer he can drag these things out, the more limitations will run out. But there has been no Russian collusion except by Hillary Clinton and Steele and all of those folks that were using the Russians to get dirt, even though it was fabricated. So I don't know. I don't think we can expect a lot from the new Attorney General. He's close friends with Mueller, and his wife is close friends with Mueller's wife. I know a lot of us would like to see the truth come out, but as long as Mueller is involved, and as vindictive as the man is, he's shown it over and over again, I don't think you can expect too much in the way of justice. It'll be just us applying to him and his cronies.
But even if nothing comes out super juicy against the president as far as Russian collusion goes, you still don't expect that to be enough for the critics, do you?
No, it won't be enough for the critics, but you've noticed here this week the comments about what to expect have been trying to utilize the thing that's made me successful to the limited extent I am, and that is low expectations. You know, if they can just set the expectations lowly enough, then people go,